So over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of stuff going on really with the Jaguars coaching situation and front office situation. Since the season ended, the Jaguars have had a brand new head coach, brand new GM. They're going out and hiring a whole new coaching staff, and the process is still going on as we speak. And there's still different coaches getting interviewed. We're seeing more and more news every day about different coaches getting hired and all that stuff. But in this video, we're going to take a quick step back from it all, man. In a couple months, free agency will begin, and the Jaguars will have some decisions to make. But in this video, I want to more so talk about the players that are currently on the roster. Some guys that are impending free agents who I'd be interested in bringing back to the Jaguars, as well as guys that, maybe their contracts are pretty high, and maybe I feel like the Jaguars should potentially try to cut them to maybe save some cap room to allocate in other places. So in this video, we're going to discuss it all. Now, before I get into this video, I do want to announce that WinX DVD is giving away a free PlayStation 5 giveaway. Essentially, if you click the link down below in the description box, you can go ahead and submit your Super Bowl pick, and if you get the pick right, you get put into a drawing to win a PlayStation 5. So you guys can all do that right down in the description box down below. So when we look at guys that are becoming free agents next year, we'll first kind of begin to look at the draft class of 2017. All the players in the 2017 draft class are now unrestricted free agents going into next year. The Jaguars, they only have 3 guys left on the roster. The first round pick, number 4 overall pick in that draft class was Leonard Fournette. We all know what Leonard Fournette happened to him. He got cut. Now he's on the Buccaneers. Now his season's still alive. He's in the Super Bowl. So all the best to him. No hate for Leonard Fournette. And there's also guys like Cam Robinson. He was a second-round pick. Defensive end Dewan Smoot, and also wide receiver Dede Westbrook. Now, really the only interesting guys to kind of speak of on here, I think, that have a chance to come back are Cam Robinson and Dewan Smoot. I would not expect Dede Westbrook to come back, but I'm going to hold off to talk about these guys until a little later, because we do have some other more veteran free agents. We have guys like DJ Hayden, Tyler Eifert, Avery Jones, Chris Conley, Tyler Shatley, Chris Thompson, Mike Glennon, Sidney Jones, Josh Jones, and Trey Herndon. Now, really, when it comes to really like free agents that I want to bring back from that list, really all the guys I would really consider would be Cam Robinson, Dewan Smoot, Avery Jones, Tyler Shatley, and Sidney Jones. Like, I wouldn't mind really letting some of these other guys walk at all. So really, let's talk about Cam Robinson real quick. Cam Robinson, I mean, he's a big talking point because he's a free agent, and right now on the roster, there's really nobody besides maybe Will Richardson that can step in at the left tackle spot coming up in the 2021 season. But me personally, my focus with this offseason is I want to make sure that we are great on the offensive line. Like, I want to make sure that we don't have a Joe Burrow situation where our new star franchise quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, I don't want to put him in a position of any danger, and I want to make sure that he is good for the future, and I want to make sure that we are great along the trenches. Now, I am personally on the train of really putting a lot of money toward Trent Williams. Trent Williams, he may be an older guy. Trent Williams is 33 years old, but last year in 2020, he only let up 4 sacks. He's also made Pro Bowls 8 out of the last 9 years. And he's a guy that, look, he's going to go wherever the money goes, man. And because obviously he was holding out for the Washington football team for a little bit, trying to get more money from them. They never got them. He got traded last year, and now he's in a situation where he's finally free. He's an unrestricted free agent. He can finally go out there and chase the bag. And as we all know, one perk about Jacksonville is that there's no state income taxes in the state of Florida, which makes it much more attractive. So this would be something interesting to potentially do for the Jaguars, although it would make our offensive line very, very old and very, very expensive. Every single player except for right tackle Jawan Taylor will be guys that are on pretty expensive deals. Definitely Andrew Norwell and Brandon Linder are. Right guard AJ Cann is a little bit cheaper, but we can kind of talk about that a little later on. Dewan Smoot, one thing I like about Dewan Smoot, it seems like he's been getting better as the years go on, but he's no real game changer in there, but he does serve a certain role. He is that rotational guy. You play a lot of different defensive tackles and defensive linemen, defensive ends all throughout the game, so really just get a guy that's a part of the rotation. I wouldn't mind bringing him back, but I don't see him commanding much money on the open market. There's also Avery Jones. Obviously, Avery Jones has been with the Jaguars. He's the longest tenured Jaguar, been on the Jags since the 2013 season. So Avery Jones, for a cheap deal, I wouldn't mind bringing him back either. And also Sidney Jones. Jaguars got Sidney Jones last year after he was let go by the Eagles, and he was actually pretty good for the Jaguars last year. Kind of had a little bit of a resurgent year. He's now a free agent, but I imagine that he would want to come back to the Jaguars. Maybe he signs a 1-year prove-it deal, or maybe a 2-year kind of friendlier deal. I don't see him getting a bigger contract anywhere else, but I would imagine that he'd want to stay in Jacksonville to hopefully live out to kind of build on the momentum that he started from last year. So now we can get into guys that we can potentially cut, like guys that have pretty decent roster hits that maybe we want to cut to maybe save some room. Now keep in mind, there's not really a great list right here. Like really the Jaguars have like the most money available, and they don't really have a lot of guys where it's like, man, we really need to make a decision on this guy. Now, the first guy that I will consider cutting is Andrew Norwell. You cut Andrew Norwell at the left guard spot and you save $9 million. However, I don't know how for this I am, just because, I mean, you look at it, like I said, man, I want to make sure that our offensive line is as good as possible. And I am not necessarily in the business where I want to create a hole when I don't really need one. So really with Andrew Norwell, he did decent last year. I mean, he wasn't great. He doesn't live up to his contract, but another thing that might play into effect here is that there's 2 players on the Jaguars that have played for Urban Meyer before. It was Leonard McCray back in the Florida days in 2008 when he won a national championship with Urban Meyer, and also Andrew Norwell was with Urban Meyer at Ohio State. So maybe that kind of plays into it. Maybe Urban Meyer does like the familiarity. He kind of knows what he has in Andrew Norwell, one of the few players that he already has a relationship with. So maybe that keeps him around. But obviously it's a lot of money for Andrew Norwell, but we have a lot of money, man. Like we don't need to be pinching pennies here. I would be definitely all for like bringing in a guy like Trent Williams and bringing in and keeping on Andrew Norwell, but at the same time I would still be drafting guys. I would still be stocking up on offensive linemen, so we can eventually cut these guys and be able to have some cheap labor at the offensive line spot. Now next up would be Taven Bryan. You're only saving $1 million by cutting Taven Bryan, but Taven Bryan just sucks. I mean, it's disappointing because, man, the guy is powerful, the guy is disruptive, but he has no football IQ. He doesn't know how to get off his blockers, and he doesn't know what he's doing out there, and it's frustrating to watch. And it's at the point where it's like, look, maybe he can do something somewhere else. Maybe he goes and plays with like Dan Quinn for the Cowboys or something like that. But I don't see him having any place on his team, and you know what I mean. He's as good as gone to me. Next up would be Al Woods. Al Woods was brought in as a free agent in 2020. However, he did opt out due to the pandemic. By cutting Al Woods, we saved $1.4 million. I would think that maybe we can take that money and allocate it maybe for a better player. Maybe, stockpile some of that up and go out and get a Leonard Williams. I'm all for it. I think the Jaguars go out and maybe try to get at least 2 high money guys. I mean, the guys on my list would be left tackle Trent Williams and interior defensive lineman Leonard Williams, just because I want to fortify the trenches, man. I want to fortify the trenches in free agency, and that way in a draft we can go out there and get our wide receivers, our tight ends, our defensive backs. Like, that's the approach that I personally would take really for all this. So yeah, get some of that money and kind of put it toward a better player. Now the last one is an interesting situation. Quarterback Gardner Minshew. You're only saving like $80,000 by cutting him, but it's not a position about whether to cut him. It's more of a position about whether or not the Jaguars want to trade him. Now, I would think that the Jaguars would probably, at the very least, maybe get a 5th round pick for him. Maybe upwards of a 3rd round pick. I mean, you never know. With the Jaguars got a 4th round pick for a very, very expensive Nick Foles. With the way quarterbacks are moving around like crazy, maybe a team that maybe wanted to roll the dice and get Deshaun Watson winds up getting outbidded, and maybe they say, look, maybe we should just go out there and get Gardner Minshew to kind of run our scheme. That could be something that very well happens. So with Gardner Minshew, if he hangs around the Jaguars, I could only see him hanging around the Jaguars as if it's like a 2-quarterback room. If it's a 3-quarterback room, I can see him hanging around. But if the Jaguars are only doing 2 quarterbacks, I could definitely see like really Trevor Lawrence in there, then get him like a veteran backup, whether it be like a Matt Barkley or a Chase Daniel. You know, I think one of the best things for a young quarterback is to get a veteran quarterback to come in there and mentor him. I don't know if Gardner Minshew is necessarily would fit that role very well. I mean, it's not a point of whether he would accept the backup role. It's just about like, you know, what do we want? What kind of guy do we want in his ear? You know, I would think that they'd want to go after more of an experienced backup, somebody maybe in their 30s to come in there that's kind of been around the game a little bit, been in a bunch of different offenses. Someone like that, I could definitely see the Jaguars maybe kind of have an interest in really bringing in, and then maybe with a practice squad spot, that's where you kind of put your 5th, 6th round quarterback that you draft. Those are kind of my thoughts on really the whole like Gardner Minshew situation. So those are some of my thoughts about what the Jaguars should do really this offseason when it comes to guys on the current roster and what we should do with them. I mean, luckily, as you guys know, we're not losing a lot of star power. You know what I mean? We don't have any guys on the roster that are going to require a lot of money to spend on. You know, maybe if you look back at a guy like Cam Robson, one thing that I didn't really bring up is maybe if you don't want to spend Trent Williams money on him, but you don't want to pay a lot of money toward him, one thing that could be in play is a tag. You can franchise tag him, which basically puts him at a 1-year fully guaranteed deal, and it basically averages him at the top 5 paid left tackles in the NFL. Or you could even put a transition tag on him. Now, what a transition tag does is it allows other teams to go out there and give him a deal and sign him to an offer. And if the Jaguars look at it and say, look, we can afford that, that's worth it to us, they can go out there and match it, and he's on the Jaguars. However, if they don't really feel like going that route, and if you know, at the end of the day, like if they think they can improve on it, and if Cam Robson isn't worth that money, maybe they do something else. And I could definitely see a team want to pay Cam Robson just because, you know, tackles, they're very highly sought after commodities. Left tackle is a franchise spot, man. It's a key point, a key position on an NFL team, because unless you're quarterbacked by Tua Tagovailoa, they're protecting their quarterback's backside. You know what I mean? So got to protect that asset, especially with Trevor Lawrence kind of coming in here. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do here. But I want to know your guys' thoughts, man. What do you guys think, man? Do you guys kind of agree with my list? Who are some of the guys that you keep? Some of the guys that you would cut? And then definitely later on, I'll be coming out with more of a video on specifically who I would target in free agency. Probably more of a fun video, and I really can't wait for it. I really can't wait for the Jaguars to really solidify the coaching staff so we can move forward and we can really start kind of taking a deep dive at the personnel on the Jaguars right now. So thank you guys for watching the video. If you guys can, please drop a like on the video for me, and I will catch you guys in my next video.